Greetings again, one and all. It's me, your old pal G, minus Mark. Call me whatever you want. Today's story is one I'm quite fond of, actually. This is just an amusing memory, I guess. Well, attached to a kind of a sad event. But I want to talk about a collection that was bought while I worked for Bim Bam Records in the UK. Before I emigrated to the USA, I worked for the last 5 years before moving over here for Bim Bam Records, which is in Eastleigh, which is near Southampton in the UK. And I worked there for 5 years, and I was kind of the guy who answered the phone, "Hello, Bim Bam," and everybody would say Bob, and I'd go, "No, it's Mark." And Bob he hired me so he could occasionally get out and buy collections and stuff like that. So one particular collection I'll never forget is we got a call one day, and I might have taken the call, or Bob might have, I forget, but basically someone had said, "Hey, my brother has passed away." So it was a sad occasion. We're doing the estate, we've got to clear the house because we're going to sell the house and all that kind of stuff. And we found he had a fairly big record collection, and we were trying to decide what to do with it. It's kind of a rock and roll collection, and we found one of your lists, and in the back of our list it said, "We buy collections, call this number," which they did. So Bob took off to go and look at this collection, and came back several hours later, and, "Well, how did you do it?" And he said, "Oh, it was pretty great." He ate pretty much what he expected, a bunch of rockabilly compilations from the 70s and normal Mariano kind of represses we've spoke about. It's just the general thing that Teddy Boys and rockabilly fans would have owned in the 70s, and they'd probably stopped collecting in the 80s. It was that kind of stuff, some nice originals. And it was a good occasion. He paid them, they were happy, he was happy. And that was it as far as we were concerned. And I think some time went by, not much. It was going to be a couple of weeks because they were in the process of clearing the house. And Bob got another call. And basically it was the same woman, and this time she sounded a little bit embarrassed and kind of like she didn't quite know what to say. And what had happened is they'd been clearing out, I might be slightly wrong, I'm remembering a story from at least 25 years ago, but they had found a hidden room, and I think from my memory it was kind of like, it was literally Narnia. I think they had found like the wardrobe had another hidden room, a fairly small room, but bigger than a closet. And in there they got quite a surprise, quite a shock, because he had another PC in there, and he also had a whole bunch of pretty racist propaganda on his wall, like sort of old Klan related stuff and things like that. And the sister was shocked because they didn't know he had any kind of interest or racist beliefs. They were kind of shocked to find this stuff. But with this display of posters or whatever and paraphernalia was a couple of shelves of 45s, and they were all of those old racist 45s. And she said, "Look, we don't know what to do with this stuff. We don't really want to sell it. We want this stuff gone. We don't know why it's here. It's even embarrassing for us to take this, to a charity store." And Bob was like, "No problem. I'll come and take it, because there's always someone who's interested in weird records. I'm not going to go into the whole racist record thing, but there's quite a few African American or just black people, if you're in the UK, that buy those things. So, but that's a completely different story." But dutifully, he went up to take the records because they just wanted them gone, and I think he did pay them. But this is where my story comes in. So you've got a wall of racist material, but the other wall contained what is in this box, which is the biggest collection you could ever imagine of 70s Elvis tribute records, mostly made pretty much in 1977. It was a genre I wasn't particularly aware of, but always being fascinated by the weird and wonderful, I couldn't resist. And Bob came back and he's like, "What am I going to do with this?" And it was a 150 count box, I think. No, I don't think it was that many. It was, it was a stack. And well, it was this many. I said I've got to have it, so I bought that box from him, and he gave me a great deal on it. Of course, I mean, who else? But it came with the guy's wants list. Okay, this is the handwritten wants list, most of which I've completed. I figured I would continue this person's quest, whatever his character may have been. Now, I was immediately fascinated by this stuff because it was everything I was hoping for. You've got to kind of understand this whole world of Elvis tributes. There's a very morose, strange side to it, and there are lots of different angles I've learned. And trying to break them down. To pull these out because these are those are two of the ones you want to look out for. But having decided to listen to every record in there and make a compilation, I made several compilations, from tapes to CDs, and I did a podcast about at least 10 years ago. I'll put a link. I think it's still online somewhere. Did like a 2 or 3 hour podcast playing all these things. But this is the thing about them that I find so fascinating, is the different genres. So you have some of the better ones were things like Billy Joe Burnett. He was a good singer, a good musician, and they would do, tribute songs that made sense. They were kind of sentimental or made to, appeal to people's heartstrings, but you kind of got it. But there was a way deeper, darker, twisted side to the genre. And they break down into different kinds. There are people who did the Elvis spoken narration type of things, which there are hundreds of. And they all kind of have a 70s kind of Elvis narration kind of backing, that he would have done on, in the chapel or something, or in the ghetto, or something like that. And they're kind of like your typical, they always are doing an Elvis impersonation while doing the tribute. So you've kind of got your, well, Elvis, I know you're up there in heaven now, and I just want to say, so there's that genre. But then there's the people like our wonderful lady here, Chris Marchand. It's probably my favorite. Elvis, God's Ready for a Song, backed with the bluest Christmas ever. Then we've got Elvis for Just an Hour or Two, and God Called Elvis Home. These are amazing. She's almost doing a female Elvis impersonation. So she's, Elvis, I just want to say, you're with Jesus now. And that's the thing. She's extremely religious. And she definitely had this thing going on in her head, this very clear fantasy that not fantasy, this just very clear vision. And it all involved pretty much Elvis being really happy and being a king in heaven, entertaining God or Jesus. I can't remember which one it was. But that's your religious kind of side of the Elvis tribute thing. Then you got all your endless cover versions of things. But I want to see if I can find my absolute favorite. I mean, it's not in a picture sleeve or anything like that. You've got Johnny Fargo, Jack Hickory. You've got a tribute to the king there, which was like a radio narration. One of those, what do they call it? Break-in discs, like Buchanan and Goodman. Probably my favorite one ever, The King's Last Concert by Red Sovine, is just incredible. I mean, it's Elvis's ghost coming back in 1977, playing a show where he just appears on the back of like a pickup truck. It's ledge. It's bloody ledge, mate. I don't know why I've all of a sudden decided to be Australian. Perhaps I'm having some kind of stroke. Oh, that's great. That's J.D. Sumner, who was in the Jordanaires and does the Elvis has left the building. It was 1935 when a king was born. One of those kind of things. His name was Elvis Presley. He was born. Presley, the King Cadillac Man, Angel May North. I mean, that's going to be good. Elvis is Gone by Elvis Little Bob Harrison. What have we got there? I'm Never Gonna Fall in Love Again. Oh, okay. But my favourite one, which I was just looking for, the absolute crown jewel for me, is Candy Bars for Elvis by Barry Tiffin. It's one of the Elvis spoken narration types I mentioned. I'll show anything that looks interesting. And basically, it's a story. He says it's a true story in it. And he's homeless and living in his car. And one day he's walking around Nashville and somebody comes out of a studio and says, "Hey, kid, would you go and get some candy bars?" But he tells it in the Elvis voice. So a man came out of the studio and he says, "Son, would you mind getting me some candy bars?" So you would imagine it like that. And what happens is the guy goes to get the candy bars and takes them back to the studio, and they're like, "Come in." And in he goes. And of course, the candy bars for Elvis. But it's not just that. It then turns out that Elvis gave him like a $30 tip or something. And that money just about saved his life. He'd been down on his luck. And it turned his whole life around. No, I'm becoming Hank Hill now. The boys I called a whacking in my tool shed. Your boys sure do a lot of whacking. It's not Hank Hill. It's Mr. What was he called? The one they based Hank Hill on. Not Mr. Arnold. It was Mr. Arnold, wasn't it? You boys been a whacking in my tool shed. You do a lot of whacking. I should stop that. Oh, look at that. Oh, these are Elvis bootlegs. I can't find candy bars for Elvis. And I'm sure me looking for it is probably not the most interesting thing in the world. But I do want to show you. I've got one I can't find. I was showing someone. My favourite one isn't here, and I can't even remember what it's called. But this has got to be one of them. Here is a Elvis Tribute album. And it's one of those song poem ones. So it was the kind of deal where you would just write the songs and send them to someone, and they would just record them for you. This is an Elvis bootleg. There are different versions of this. It's just incredible. I mean, it's the most offensive Elvis bootleg. It's called Elvis's Greatest Shit. It's got a copy of his death certificate. No, it's got a copy of one of his prescription from his doctor. But I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's got loads of stuff in it. So yeah, apparently that's not the first pressing. And Patty Sexton, she's another one who definitely was pretty deeply into Elvis. Well, anyway, I guess the main thing I wanted to say was about the weird collection. I kept it going. I've kept that going for about 20 years. If I see an Elvis tribute that I don't have, it goes in there. So, how did I manage to waste 13 minutes of your life on that? Well, just because you now know if you find an Elvis tribute I don't have, maybe I'll want it. Maybe I'll trade it with you. This has been me, G, and I'm just that's it really. Nothing really I can add to that, except I did, like I say, there is a 3-hour podcast where I play all that, and I'll put a link. Yeah, that's it. Bye. The weather's kind of crappy. I kind of feel like I should offer more to you. I could sing it. No, I'll just go.